Hello, and welcome to Relative Pitch. We appreciate you tuning into our podcast. Our mission is to give you young musicians' perspectives on hot topics in the music world. By sharing our thoughts and opinions, we hope to help with bringing positive change and diversification to the music world. Here are your hosts, Lauren Green, Anthony Morris, and Michael Brown. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. It is 2021. We're so excited that we get to see you all in this beautiful new year. Thank you so much for continuing this journey with us. It's been such a privilege to be able to do this and have you all along for the ride. And this is the new year for us. And so this is season 1 still, but episode 13, the music community's role in politics. So the way that we kind of came up with this episode is kind of in response to the things that have been happening this past week, actually, last week, technically. And so as most of you probably know, the attacks that happened on the Capitol in Washington, D.C., that was kind of huge. That was huge. In terms of terrorism in the new year. I mean, first week and here we are. Guys, what were your reactions to when this happened?
People said new year, new me in a completely wrong way. They said new year and I'm going to storm the Capitol.
I think even like New Year, same me, right?
Oh. No, this one's a little bit more bold. Last time they just beat Facebook warriors. Now they're like, I'm gonna just they walked up in the Capitol. They didn't fight, walked.
So let's let's break this down to people who may not even know exactly what happened. I'm sure you do, but just perspective. Basically what happened was, since the election happened, the presidential election happened, there have been some strife and thoughts that there was foul play in the election process. Now, anyone who's done any research or read any article or gone to any major accredited website and looked up election fraud in the US, you know that it's basically non-existent. Now, there have been cases that have been found of people maybe little slip-ups that happen here and there, but there is no huge showing that it actually happens on a regular basis, okay? So I would believe that most people would view that as, okay, it's like any type of system where there may be a few flaws that happen, but overall the integrity is still there. For some reason, this past election, the integrity of our democratic election process was questioned because of a certain party, okay? And, this is a show where we feel like we are open to be very open with our opinion. And we want you guys to also be open with your opinion of how you feel that things are viewed and things happen within the world. But basically, this continuous attack on our democracy is what caused this. No one can deny that. It was a build up, and then finally a huge explosion that honestly, no one saw exactly this coming. I wasn't expecting this. It was a day that I was teaching twice. I was like, okay, we're gonna have some coffee. It's gonna be a normal day. And then I don't know if it was y'all who texted me, was like, oh my gosh, do you see what's happening? They're attacking the Capitol. Okay, I don't watch the news. But that entire day, as soon as it happened, I had the news going on different platforms too, going on my TV, my laptop, my iPad, my phone. I was checking Twitter all day. Like, when did you guys realize that this was happening? Because I think even Anthony put in the group chat, like, oh my gosh, you see what's happening?
Yeah. So I was already up because I knew that day was going to be the day that they officially, vote in President-elect Joe Biden as our president. Because, you have to go through electoral college, you have to do all of that. So I was already up. Watching that, how that's going to go. And it actually started out a little bit tense anyway, because people are already we're coming in there like, we're going to stop this vote, we're going to do everything else. And then next thing I know, because for me, anybody who knows me, I'm a big person on Twitter. Like, I love Twitter. And I remember refreshing my Twitter and seeing like, people are storming the Capitol. And I'm like, wait, what is happening? Like, what is going on? And I'm just continue. Like, that day, my thumbs were so sore because of how much I was just going through it. And I started seeing these people literally walking up to the Capitol like not like there was no police. That it looked like they were welcomed guests, but welcome guests that had guns and torches and all of these weapons to go into the Capitol. And then I remember seeing this one report where it was like the Capitol is now on lockdown. Every senator, every representative, they have been placed in their like bunker basically, and that really enraged me. And this is why it enraged me is because not even a year ago from last week, there were Black Lives Matter protests. There were peaceful protests, by the way, peacefully. And the thing is, we marched peacefully, but we got matched with terror. We got drugged through the streets. We got tased. We got pepper sprayed. We got rubber bullets, and we were just marching throughout the streets. Never attack on the US government, the building that has not been attacked since 1812. 1812. But here you go, you have this group of people who is literally attacking the US government, the government building. Think about it. When 9/11 happened and they went into the towers, then the Pentagon, did you see the reaction that the world had to that? Here is domestic terrorism going on our soil to another US building. What is the reaction to that? To this right now, this is January 10th that we're filming this. There are people that are at home right now who was like, oh yeah, I was there. I was there. And what's gonna happen next? That enrages me because they literally there's videos where the police is letting them in. And then back to the Black Lives Matter, we're just marching down the streets. Like I want everyone to go back to Atlanta, the Atlanta protest. There were tanks. There were the whole guard, the National Guard, everybody there to basically stop that protest. But here you go with none of that. The one thing that day really made me mad is that the National Guard was not dispatched to that place to 2.5 hours after the initial walking in. And there were reports that it had been declined multiple times before it got a yes. That really upsets me. And then people were saying, oh, the police, they were overwhelmed. Da, 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 da. You, everyone have known about this since election day. That that day when they were going to certify the results, there was already a plan of action for that to happen and nobody took it seriously. But when we say we're going to have a Black Lives Matter peaceful protest, why come everything? It looks like the whole military is there to stop that.
Armed.
That's me. It's disgusting. Like I am. I think I was very mad, and I put in the group chat. I said, "Y'all, look what's going on. Look what's going because this and everyone was making this correlation. If those were Black people storming the U.S. Capitol, let me just tell you right now, none of those Black people would have made it on the steps of that Capitol.
No, no one besides the people who did would have made it past the steps. They would have hit that first step if they thought they were rushing the Capitol. Pow, pow, pow.
Oh, immediately.
Like
Actually,
easy.
they wouldn't even made it anywhere in Washington, D.C. at all. At all.
Like
They
Washington, D.C. is one of the highly, like, most protected, like all of the government buildings, like to go into the 9/11 memorial, it is like going through like JFK.
Yes. Legit. I mean, I've been to Washington and I remember all the things that we had to go through. Mind you, I was a fifth grader. like I'm like 10 years old, and I remember going through all of these guards. I mean, we walked, it was the Thomas Jefferson Memorial. And I remember they had guards stacked. I remember we were outside the White House. There were guards everywhere. We actually took a picture at the Capitol, and like we were getting stared at by the guards, by Capitol Police, of 10-year-olds taking a picture on their fifth grade trip. So where is that pressure when it came to this? And that right there, I think that day made all of us very upset. Is because those police officers that were there seemed like they were just part of that. They were part of that movement anyway. So that's why they got to walk in. And also, some those people who got up in there. First of all, I don't know if y'all saw they feces wiped across the U.S. Capitol building. People sitting in the vice president's chair in the chambers. The older white man that was sitting in Speaker Pelosi's office in her emails and taking her mail. That's a federal offense. I mean, you've already had enough federal offenses, but taking, I don't know if y'all know, taking people's mail is a federal offense. I would like to see him in prison because that's what he belongs.
Yeah, the craziest thing to me about all this was the fact that there were so many people who still defended this. Like I was looking at this and I was like, there's no way anyone would be able to spin this in any way to say that these people aren't doing they're terrorists, right? And then I go on, I'm like, okay, let me see how they're trying to. And many people were saying they weren't really, this is the thing, they were deflecting. They were basically saying, all you people saying that this, comparing this to the BLM riots that happened over the summer, these are actually peaceful protesters, right? First off, that is a lie, because they broke in, breaking windows, breaking fences to get over, climbing over walls to get over. They killed a Capitol police officer, by the way. So there no way was this ever peaceful. A woman died because of their trying to get more into it. A woman died. She knew what she was doing, though. Like, we're all adults. So if you know that you're getting yourself to a situation where you can get hurt, there you go, you know? And all the other people who got trampled and all these other things, it's crazy. I'm like, how is that peaceful? How in any way is that peaceful? Because we actually organized and participated in a BLM march over the summer, and it was completely peaceful. Anytime, and the thing about it, people tried to come up to us and rile us up, all right? People purposely tried to say things to our group to make us react in a way that we would maybe be hurt by police because of it. The police, and I will have to say, shout out to the Kennesaw Police Department, because the ones who were out there with us that day were there for us. Anytime we walked across the street, they put their cars in there and they told people to wait. Whenever there were people trying to agitate us, they pushed them away and said, you need to leave them alone. They let us do anything that was considered peaceful, and everything that we did was peaceful. And the thing about it, there were so many other marches that happened and protests that happened that were exactly like that. And listen, there are bad eggs everywhere on every side. There are going to be people who want to do things that we're like, whoa, no. And that was one of the major things for us, is we made sure we're not going to vandalize. We're not going to hurt anyone. We're not going to agitate anyone. We're doing this for a cause, right? And so, yeah, there were some crazy things that happened at these things, but there have also been things that have proven that some of those people who started those lootings and rioting, like vandalism, weren't even people who were there for the reason, okay? And so it's so much that goes into it. And the fact that they wanted to easily discredit the entire movement of BLM because of a few bad eggs. But then for this, when this happened, it's because their election, it was stolen. They feel like their election was stolen from them. So does it say that if you feel that was stolen from you, you can go kill people? You can go vandalize federal buildings? It's just it's the hypocrisy for me.
It really is. Like, I remember I was talking to somebody and I was like, and they're like, there's always bad eggs. And I was like, I didn't hear you say this over the summer. But okay, like for me, like I've grown up in a military family. I grew up to respect the pledge, the Constitution, all this other stuff. Like for me, I respect like the country we live in is supposed to be free, supposed to be this melting pot of everything. And the older you grow up, the more you realize it's not, and the more you realize it's like people have to fight 10 times harder than like me. I have it almost made in this country, to be completely honest. And I see the privilege in that. And I see that my friends, aka the people who are on the podcast with me, don't have it as easy. Don't see stuff that I see. I'm like, oh, I can just drive at night. And I got pulled over because my brake light got out. But I don't have to be scared that my life is going to be taken, or I'm going to have extra pressure on me. But like for me, when I say like people say I'm an American, all this other stuff, but if you can say you're an American and you see your capital bull rushed like it's a flag football playground backyard football game, you cannot be proud or defend. You have to be sad. You have to be demoralized. You have to be like, what in the hell is going on in the country that was once one of the greatest countries in the world? People still say it. It's not. We are one of the worst in literacy. We're one of the worst in infant mortality. Like, we are not the superpower we once was, like, by any means. And it just sucks that people still defend this country to what it is when it really needs a lot of work. And we just don't, like, if we all just admitted it needed work, life would be better. But when we try to cover up a problems, that is when it just gets worse. Like when you have an old rusted car that's beat up and you just don't want to see that it's rusting, take that thing in some snow, you ain't gonna have no more car. Like it's very easy, and it's the hypocrisy of everything. Like for me, like my friends that I knew who were at the Atlanta protest or at other protests being met with like tanks and armed cops and all this other stuff, I just like think of the civil rights textbooks that we have and see the pictures like there. I'm like, that was what years were those?
Between the 50s and 60s.
Exactly. And why is that still happening? Why are they still met with that in 2020?
Because we haven't solved those issues from then. Obviously,
they put a Band-Aid over them.
Here.
They put a Band-Aid over them, but Band-Aids don't heal.
I wouldn't even say a Band-Aid. I just say a piece of tape. One of those loose, wet pieces of tape. Like it got put on the back burner for some years, and now it's back, and it's just like I was talking with a colleague of mine at my school, and she was saying how she was watching the show A Different World from the 90s, and it was after the Rodney King riots. And the students were having a conversation about there needs to be a change, there needs to be conversations, there needs to be this. And she was like, that's literally what we're saying right now. This show came out in 1988, 1980, the riots of 1992. So like that time, and it's almost 30 years later, and we're still saying these same things. Like that nothing has changed. It has got put on the back burner, sure, and we've done other stuff, sure, but nothing has changed when it comes to stuff like this at all. And especially when I hear people talk about a few bad seeds. That was a lot of few bad seeds, if you ask me. Like, I don't know if people saw how many people were there. That's a lot of few bad seeds. And it wasn't like, oh, just one group of them, the rest of the protest was peace. No, every single person that was there bombarded the US Capitol. That's not a few bad seeds. And then the other rhetoric that I hear is the Blue Lives Matter. Well, that changed very quickly. The little resistance that I did see from the Capitol Police, I remember seeing some of the protesters, rioters, thugs, as That's what they are. I saw them like, how could you do this to us? We're supposed to be on the same side. Like, very just, what in the world is going on that the police is against us? That Blue Lives Matter went out the way. They killed a police officer. They bombarded the police officer. So where's that Blue Lives Matter? Blue Lives only mattered when Black lives was in question.
I said something about that too, and I was just like the just looking at these people holding Blue Lives Matter flags while literally fighting the police just says everything about how the movement itself meant nothing more to them besides undermining the Black Lives Matter movement. I said it on Facebook, I'll say it again. It just shows what their true intentions were behind what they did and what they have been doing since past spring or past summer and everything. And so here we are, 3 young musicians in the world, and every time something like this happens, I feel like everyone has to stop and think, what can I do to help this? What can my community do? What can I do in my community? What, like, to help this not happen, to help the country? Because this was a country that was built on the idea of like religious freedom and getting away from prosecution for those things. Now, the question, you can also question who that freedom was for, but that's another topic.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Because that is the thing. And one thing about that Capitol building, you do not, Capitol building was built by enslaved Black people. So here, somebody also said, how could they do it? Number one, Mabel, this country was supposed to be built for free people. But like you said, who are those free people that you are speaking about?
Yeah. And that's America's history, right? It's all about freedom, but for certain people. Because African American people, Black people were not thought to be people, whatever America was, I'll do this, found. Anyway, so now we're at this point where we are a few days from this incident. We are about to be a few days from the new inauguration of our president-elect, and we're worried. We're worried that like something else like this is going to happen, and that this is something that can continue to happen because these people feel like they have been empowered to do things like this. Like it is their right as an American to defend their democracy with whatever sense it makes sense in their head. That's how they feel. This is not the first time something crazy politically has happened in America or in the world even. And so let's like take a look back to things of the past that have happened and how the music community has responded to it. And the first instance I'll talk about is Messian's, Oliver Messian's Quartet for the End of Time. Now this is a piece that like quartet that was written for violin, cello, clarinet, and piano. You might be thinking to yourself, that's a very weird combination. Yes, it absolutely is. The atmosphere that this piece was written under was when Messian actually was captured, imprisoned by the German army in World War II. Okay, so he was imprisoned. The only instrumentalist he could find within that camp was himself. He did piano, violin, a cello, and a clarinet. All right, so he composed this piece in basically in resistance to what was going on in the time. And the preface was inspired by the book of Revelation. Because during this time, a lot of people were like, this is the end of the world. This is the worst it could ever get possibly. And so this was his response to what was going on in the world. And this was so powerful because in those instances, it can feel so like it's the end of the world. Why would I want to do anything besides die, right? And he used his art, he used his talent to make something that inspired the people who were imprisoned in that camp, and something that is used now. If you go listen to this piece also, I've listened, it's haunting. It is beautifully done. The orchestration, it's so weird. It's so quirky in a lot of ways, but I think it kind of works for what it is. But this was one of the instances during that period that we saw of the music community's response to what was currently happening in politics. And I know Michael and Anthony both had other instances as well, examples of where the music community responded to political situations.
I know one around the same time, Joseph Stalin. We all know Stalin. He was one of the dictators that was killing millions of Russian citizens, purging them, he called them. And one of the greatest composers, Shostakovich, was in Russia with his family, composing politically driven music, waiting outside on his doorstep every night, chain smoking cigarettes, just in case the secret police was going to come and grab him. He didn't care if they were going to come and grab him. He wanted to say his beliefs, write his music, but he didn't want them to disturb his family. Like when I was told this, when I was preparing an excerpt from his piano and trumpet concerto #1, which by the way, if you haven't listened to it, amazing. And there's a excerpt for trumpet that's low, very lamenting. And you can just, if you can feel all the agony, all the pain that Shostakovich was going through under the reign of Stalin. Like, if you're one of the country's greatest composers at the time, and you're writing politically driven music against the dictator of that country, wouldn't you be scared throughout the day, throughout the night, that you were just going to be coming and taken by the secret police just because you were going against something? Like, we now have a chance to go against something and don't immediately get our heads chopped off. So, like, but he's just chain smoking these cigarettes on his front step. Like, they're going to come and get me, but I just don't want you to mess with my family. Leave my family alone. You can have me, but I'm still going to say what I got to say.
Yeah, and so going off of Michael, getting into more specific, another piece that he got into a lot of no trouble with was his Leningrad Symphony. And I believe we either played a clip of this or we discussed it, maybe both already. In Alex Ross's book, The Rest is Noise, there is so much information about Stalin and Shostakovich's relationship. But truly, it was the reason why I even got more into Shostakovich, knowing about the history of his music and the circumstances in which they were written under. But Leningrad Symphony, honestly, it's one of my favorite pieces ever. One thing, just go listen to it. Number 7, Shostakovich, Leningrad, beautiful piece. But it was used as a symbol of resistance to fascism and totalitarianism. And in Movement 1, actually the theme was called the Stalin Theme by Shostakovich's close friends, right? And if you go listen to it, it's like this theme was like da 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 dum dum, and it's very like marchy and very like I'm coming to kill you-esque, okay? And then later on, it was actually adopted into like called the anti-Hitler theme. Okay, so you know what this is about. This is music of resistance. It's music to say we're not okay with what's going on. This was immediately banned, by the way. Like they heard it and they were like, absolutely not, you know. And thankfully, it got over, I believe, to the U.S. Before I believe it could be destroyed. And there's a lot of even Shostakovich music still to this day that is censored, and you can't even find it in print and all this crazy stuff, because that's how scared Stalin was of the impact of Shostakovich's music, because that is music and art in general touches us personally. That is why Hitler used Wagner's music, because Wagner had a talent for speaking right here or right into your heart, you know? And so music has always been a force, like a strong force within politics. And there are like numerous examples, and Anthony even has more about this.
Yeah, before I even do that, I think something has changed in music a little bit from then to now, where now a lot of people are using this rhetoric of music, we don't want music to be political. There is no way in the world music cannot be political, because music has always been something that correlates with what is going on in the world. Therefore, that whole statement is out of line, because it is always reacting to what is going on. So the two pieces that y'all referred to, they were a direct response to what was going on at that time. So we now in our good old 21st century world where, things are kind of going easy, they're like, oh, we just want it to be beautiful. Da, da, da. No, that's not it. That's really not it. And that whole thing of music is not political needs to just go away. And also, political is something socially, social justice, anything justice really is no longer political in the first place. We are not political is when you're talking about, do we want a blue president, a red president, green? What? That's politics. When we're talking about, do we want to see justice for people who are getting slain, who are dying in these streets? That is not political. That is justice. Okay, that is what we were talking about. And some of the pieces that I really have taken, a part of, or just love listening to, is a lot of the newer music who has been a response, especially with the past, honestly, 10 years of things going on. One of them is Omar Thomas's "Of Our New Day Has Begun," which is a direct response to the Mother Emanuel AME Church shooting in Charleston, South Carolina, where um, another domestic terrorist walked into a church and actually killed a lot of Black people that was just going to church, just going, trying to go to church, went in there and killed so many people there. I think that was 2015. And that also was a very outraging thing because, again, the police, when taking this young man, this terrorist, to jail, asked him, "What do you want to eat?" Stopped, I think it was like at a McDonald's, got him a McDonald's sandwich before taking him to jail. That is disgusting. You treated this person that literally just killed, I think it was like 15 or so people in a church, went in and killed these people, both old elders, both young, all of these people, and you're asking this person, what do they want to eat? Disgusting. Another piece that was a response to this Mother Emanuel shooting was also James Stevenson, entitled "There Are No Words," which I remember hearing this for the first time, and because KSU actually performed it, and hearing that, I think there's this part in the flute where I think it's a low F, mind you, flute players, low F, like it's lower in the register, and just like what Michael was saying about the trumpet concerto, where it was very low, and whenever an instrument is sitting lower in their register, it sounds very haunting, like it's something you remember. And I think, Lauren, I don't know if you remember, but I think there was like 8 or so Fs, and I think it was representing the 8 lost souls from that shooting. And I just remember hearing it, and it's literally just flute, and it's you hear eight, you hear just eight, just bum bum, and you're just like, what's going on? And then I remember sitting in the audience like, it brings you in and it's very haunting. And that is one thing that I will always remember about that piece is because of that. And I'm pretty sure y'all, because Lauren, you performed this piece and how it felt to perform that piece.
When we were honored to have James Stevenson actually with us for the rehearsals of this and for the performance of this. And I remember first when we got the piece and we were reading over it a little bit, and Dr. Keeler explaining it to us, and then also James Stevenson coming in and explaining it to us, and like pointing out all the things in it, like Anthony was saying, the low ostinatos that were happening to represent the deaths. And also there was the thing that I think got me was there is a part where you could hear the names of the victims in it. He has it written out. And I remember the first rehearsal we had of this, we all cried. I mean, I remember like I was sitting next to Corinne, which is one of the former flute players at KSU, And I just remember crying. She was crying. We just heard sniffling across the ensemble. I believe even Dr. Keeler was wiping a few tears away. And then when we did the actual performance of this, and because I believe James Stevenson, he spoke about it, of course, at the concert, so that the audience had a perspective of the piece. And after, it was such an emotional thing to perform, and the audiences, because I believe, and Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong, because you were in the audience. I believe both of you were in the audience for this. Actually, it was almost like a moment of silence that we were all just reflecting on what we had just listened to and what it represented, and then finally came the applause of the actual performance. But it was such a amazing experience, but also so saddening to the fact that we even are playing a piece because of the situation that happened. And it just shows you how, like I said before, the power that art and specifically music has in circumstances like this.
I know that piece moved me. A lot of pieces have moved me. Like Music for Prague is another one that's just like the story behind it. And my point going forward, um, we have to openly talk about why pieces were written, what happened, what inspired them, why was it inspiring, why was this the history, the true, complete, factual history of everything. Like the longer we suppress history, the more it will repeat itself. And that is like a true fact of everything. Like if students don't understand and they're learning about Leningrad or Shostakovich 5, Music for Prague, all the new works that Anthony has mentioned, and we will release more like recordings and stuff later of all the works that have been recently written about recent events. If they don't know these pieces or know why they were written, then it is bound to repeat itself and bound for audiences to stop coming. Yes. And that's something that Anthony is very passionate about. I'm gonna pass off to him about this, why classical music, quote unquote, is on the decline in some areas.
I am very passionate about this because I think I fall in this category of why in classical music are we seeing our audience kind of decrease. And to me, I believe it's because we have now, um, it's not relatable to us anymore. As a millennial, or I don't know if we're millennials or Gen Z, I don't know what we are. We're kind of like in the middle. But I do know for myself and people of my age, this music that we are playing is not relatable to us anymore. And I know people that are way younger than us, it's definitely not relatable to them because they're like, what is this? What is going on? So the thing is, when we do perform these pieces, such as, Karel Husa's Music for Prague, or Omar Thomas's Of Our New Day Begun, or James Stevenson, like these are the pieces that bring audience there because they know what this means. They know, especially when like a new person will come into the audience, and especially like say the conductor say a couple words just to get you into that mindset of this piece represents something like that. And one piece that I think really kind of hits it on the nail is by Craig Hella Johnson, and it's called Considering Matthew Shepard. So for you that don't know Matthew Shepard, he was a gay student at the University of Wyoming, I believe, that was kidnapped, severely beaten, tied to a fence, and left to die in a field under the stars in 1998. Um, I remember hearing this story when I was a young, because as a person of LGBTQ community, hearing this, I think I was probably 13 or so, hearing this for the first time, and just like scared. And people are always, they warn you if you're part of the LGBTQ or Black person, or your family kind of lets you know, be careful. Like I remember getting that story all the time from my parents of like, be careful, know your surroundings, know everything. So when I heard about this, that really kind of hit me, the Matthew Shepard story of just how could anybody do this? take a person who like literally not bothering you at all, kidnapping them, beating them, and leaving them in a field to die. Disgusting. But Craig Heller Johnson wrote a phenomenal piece called Considering Matthew Shepard, where it tied all of the sadness, the anguish, all of these feelings into a piece. And I think I remember many different choir groups played this, and I remember seeing no one in the audience had a dry eye at all. And even the family of Matthew Shepard co-signed on this um, piece as well. It is very sad. These are the songs that relate to um, the generation now, especially the kids right now who are in the LGBTQ community who are like, I don't know what's going, like I don't see another gay person or this and that. These are the pieces that relates to them. This is how we are going to really have our audience, because now they're like, wow, I hear myself. I see myself in this. I want to be a part of this. And I think, and as a conductor, it is our job to make sure our ensemble knows what is going on. Because I do know some ensembles who will say performance spiritual and they don't know what the spiritual means, and then of course it's going to come off very um, not genuine whatsoever, and that actually does a worse service to that piece than anything else.
Yeah, the thing about it is in music we have the pieces like, oh, these just are really fun to play. And as a flute player and like as a soloist, me and Michael, like that's the thing. We have our pieces that are just like the really fun like concert openers or concert enders and things you would do on chamber recitals that, ooh, this is going to get the audience moving and dancing. And there's a place in the world for all of these aspects of music. Okay, there's there are pieces like that are more for the entertainment side, and then there are pieces like the ones we're discussing here today that are the things that really relate to our humane side, our morals, and that are really the pieces that actually connect us, right? And so what we're saying is that whenever we're teaching these students these pieces, when we're programming concert seasons for symphonies, we have to have a good balance of both, and also show our audience the like why we're playing these pieces. Because while Shostakovich is dead, hearing about the music that he wrote and why he wrote it can relate to things going on currently now, right? And then you have other pieces like that may be like more Baroquean era that really don't, but at the same time they do have a place within our current timeline. But that doesn't have to be all that we play. What we're striving to get is a more balanced recital, symphony concert, and just a way more about like what is in the current rotation needs to be updated and refreshed, I believe. You know what I mean? And so, there are our war horses. We've used that term a lot within this, that we feel like we almost have to play within ensembles. Do we though? It's like now we're questioning what is it, just because we've done it before that we want to continue, or are we ready to step up and move forward and start something new that, like they're saying, is more relatable to our current generations? Because most students who are out there in those band programs or orchestra programs, choral programs, may not know exactly like just like Anthony just said, exactly what they're singing or playing. They could just have learned the music. Think about if the teacher actually took 5 to 10 minutes on the first day of them opening that first new piece and explaining why it was written and the effect that it has had on the world. And imagine, like, that's a lesson you are teaching them. That is something that is going to be so ingrained in their brain, and it's going to affect the person that they are. People don't realize that I still remember certain music lessons and classes that I still remember to this day, and it affects me as a musician and as a human being as well.
Yes, uh, definitely. Like I will never forget some of the times I've done spirituals and literally just learning, uh, feeling those spirituals and kind of connecting with them. Like for me, spirituals have always been something I connected to from when I first started in choir when I was a sixth grader, doing a spiritual, because to me it just felt like this is something home. This is something that feels closer to me than say if I was doing a Mozart, whatever. Like spirituals have always felt that way. And the thing is, in the choir world, spirituals are looked at, oh, it's a showstopper. That's all it is. No, spirituals have meaning, they have a story behind them that needs to be spoken about. Okay, you cannot just give a spiritual out and say, oh, this is just our showstopper. I hope you know the definition of a spiritual. And a spiritual goes into the whole plantation song, work songs, all of these things that are the subcategories of spirituals that you need to talk about because the kids will not understand what's going on until you let them know that.
And there's a big difference in just putting these meanings in program notes and actually speaking about it in
Yeah.
concerts. Because I know I'm a weird person. I read the whole program book. I
Same.
read all the
Yeah.
bios. I like memorizing all the bios. And when I see them, like, oh, they went here, blah, 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 blah. Not a lot of people like looking at that program notes. There's sometimes I just throw that thing on the side. Like after the concert, I just throw it away or give it back to be reused if you're at a symphony. But if a conductor or student, you can get your students to do this at concerts.
Yes.
They speak about the piece, the audiences are automatically more invested because someone is speaking to you. When someone speaks to you,
Mhm.
because there's an actual inflection up and down of our voice, you're going to be more invested. And then when you listen to it, you can correlate and connect,
Yes.
which will bring people back to music because something instrumentalists don't have that vocalists have that modern culture has is words.
Mhm.
Pop modern culture, all these rap, hip hop, country, pick a genre. They are connecting to you with words, which are so much like easier. You can immediately connect. Vocalists, you have words. If you can understand the language, or if they're in English, spirituals, words, connecting, church, words, connecting. Instrumentalists, we don't have this luxury that some of us think we do. We
Right.
have to share the story and then share it through music,
Mhm.
which is easier once they understand what they're listening to. Like
Right.
if you don't understand what you're listening to in this like this nice, pretty lamenting lyrical piece, yeah, they'll be like, oh, it's kind of lamenting. But if they can connect a story to the music, they are more than willing to come back, support your organization, support you yourselves, and support music in general. And that's the whole thing. Like music for me is written to be understood and written to share an emotion. And musicians is just the vessel. Like, yes, we put a little bit of our own into everything that we play, but we are a vessel for the composers to connect to audience, to connect to the world.
Mhm.
We're not here for our own self indulgence. And we have to learn that. And it takes all of undergrad, maybe some masters, maybe some doctoral, maybe all of high school. Like, it takes however long it takes you to understand that.
Yeah.
But when you're playing a piece, you add your own emotion and you're a vessel for the audience to understand, accept, and correlate to their own lives and what's happening to them.
Some of those pieces that uh, has a story that you probably, I think, conductors or whoever needs to let the audience know what's going on. So some of those pieces, Adolphius Health Stork, American Guernica. Um, ho- on this video, we will definitely have a playlist of all the songs that we have talked about so you can go back and listen to them for yourself. But American Guernica is about the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama in 1963, where it killed 4 young Black girls. It was another terroristic bombing, really at kind of the peak of the civil rights movement in Birmingham. And of course, people know Birmingham, Alabama is one of the biggest cities throughout the civil rights movement. And there was a group of people that placed a bomb under this church. Again, a Black church, and killed 4 young girls that was just attending Sunday school. How could you do this? That piece is a response to that. And when you hear it, the first thing that you hear is anger. I remember when I first heard this piece, I was angry. It sounded very angry. And that was the whole point of it. And then it goes into this lamenting. It has like a piano um, solo at towards the ending of it. And you hear kind of this space where there's like, what just happened? What is going to happen? And it really ties into that. Another piece is Steve Daniels Into the Silent Land, which is a response to the Sandy Hook shooting. Again, a gunman coming into elementary school and shooting elementary school aged children. How could you? What is going on? This is where the whole we need some gun rights. We need to figure out this because there is no way in the world this needs to happen. And the last piece that I have on my list is John Adams on the Transmigration of Souls. It actually won a Pulitzer Prize in 2002 because it was a response of 9/11. And when you take a listen to this piece, you hear literally the souls of all those people that were affected through 9/11 just kind of transcending, going somewhere. And it is definitely one of those things where you have to say something. You have to teach and educate our listeners, the performers, and yourself what is going on. Because all of these pieces here, they have a meaning, and the purpose of that piece is to educate the next people that are listening to those.
Yeah, and so like in addition to into that, and we're getting close to February. So for me, immediately February, I'm like, this is Black History Month, and of course, like I am Black 24/7, 365 days a year, but this is the one month where the country, we're supposed to celebrate Black heritage, right? So the song "Lift Every Voice and Sing" that is known to be the Black or Negro national anthem, and so this song it was actually premiered at a celebration of Abraham Lincoln's like a birthday in February 12th, 1900, right? And it was performed by 500 school children at a school in actually Jacksonville, Florida, which I didn't really even know the history of that at all. And then basically it was a poem that was then set to music by the school, or the poem was written by the school principal. And then I believe it was his brother who actually put it to music. And if I'm sure you would know this song. If you don't know it by name, you would know it when you listen to it. But this song was actually written to speak out against racism and Jim Crow, because that is what was going on during these times, like this terrible times that we remember. And it's always there, and we're always trying to make sure we don't get back to that, okay? And it was kind of like what we were saying earlier about like, we're kind of still talking about the same problems and yada, yada, yada. Well, yeah, because obviously we have not fixed them all, and then the NAACP adapted this as the Black National Anthem, and that is how we know it today, because that is something that you hear sung. I remember going every MLK Day, I would go to church, and I remember we would do the cross arm thing in church, and like you would rock back and forth and everyone would sing it. And that was like one of the best parts of that service, was knowing that that was going to happen. Because that song just like it just moves me to like no degree. Like it's so beautiful, beautifully done. The lyrics mean so much. And so, all you educators who may be listening to this, if for Black History Month, you're planning on using that piece or any piece by an African American composer that has lyrics to it, or even if you're in band and you're teaching your band kids a piece by an African American composer and it has meaning, talk to them about it, tell them what it means, and so that they can relate to it in some way, shape, or form, or be able to empathize with it. You know what I mean? Because all of these pieces, like we have been saying this entire time, truly do mean something, and they also do something. And that goes to what we, part of this episode is, how can we as parts of the music community and the music community as a whole, how can we help out? What is our role within politics in the world right now, you know, and music has always been something that we have used to inspire hope. We've used it to bring people together, you know, and so we have to figure out the ways in which we individually and as a community can use music and use arts in order to better our country politically and just in general.
And one of the last things that, two last things. First, lift every voice. Back to the Omar Thomas's piece of Our New Day Has Begun. He uses that is the last thing that you hear. It's kind of the motives are in it. It's interweaving and it's the whole song. But that last statement is legit. Lift every voice and sing. And he intentionally put that there because it is the Black national anthem. And it ends that piece on such a high note, but also a note that you actually need to think about. And the last thing that I want to ask both of you is that for all of this time, we always say we need to have a conversation about this. We need to have a conversation. We've been trying to have this conversation about Black and white and all of these and how can we make it better. What happens after the conversations? Because every single time something, either Black Lives Matter protest or what happened on the other day with the Capitol, we're like, well, we just need to talk to each other. We need to have a conversation. What will happen after these conversations? What can we change to finally make something actually happen? What can we do?
Well, first, the conversations need to be genuine. They need to be actual conversations at this dynamic, not louder, but this dynamic, and just talking to each other. And it has to come from both places wanting to change. If both parties don't want to change, don't want to talk about what's actually happening, what is going on, nothing's going to change. And that's just with everything. If you have a conversation with somebody you have a problem with and you're not actually talking and actions don't reflect after, then it wasn't a conversation. It was talking to a wall. And first parties want to have it for it to happen, and then actions need to follow. That's where the conversation will start.
Yeah, I agree. First of all, you're absolutely true. It has to be a genuine conversation, and it has to be a conversation. Most of the time, you see those people online arguing, those aren't conversations; those are arguments. So nothing that even resembles or reflects anything like that. A conversation between two people who are actually open, or however many people who are open to hearing what the other party has to say. And I have been in those conversations, and look, they're hard. Okay, they're hard because someone could be saying something that in their mind makes complete sense, you know? And to you, you're like, how could you even think about that? But you have to remember, and this is something I've had to learn, perspective. Okay, I've never not been an African-American woman. I was born that, I will die that. And so for me, I have seen the world through a lens that so many other people will never be able to see, okay? And same Anthony, as an African-American man, has seen things that neither me and Michael will never see the perspective of, okay? And so for Michael, being who he is, he has seen the world through our lens because he's our friend, right? And because our struggles, he sees it as his struggles. And like, it's a thing that, one thing, it's beautiful. Friendships are amazing. And it also allows us to get different perspectives from other people, you know? And so that is the first step, is being open to, one thing, thinking about a perspective other than your own, and also being open to genuine conversations. And also, okay, then it's like, all right, we have the conversation. How do we invoke change? How do we want to change? Well, first of all, you just saw change because, these past elections, seeing how many states have flipped to a different side, seeing the type of the system that we have now implemented, wow. That's change right there for you. Okay. So we have to get about that action is all I'm going to say about that, is that you can, yes, go protest, go march, fundraise, all these things for great causes. But the best way that you can invoke change is to go out and use your voice and vote.
And I'm going to close it on two things. First thing, if you ever want to look at a person and study a person who said, I'm going to make a change, is Stacey Abrams. Because she is the definition of this is how you make a change. Let me go on the front lines and let me start doing the work and bringing people along with me to do the work. That is a person who invokes change, who is a person, if you ever wanted somebody to look at of how can I make a change, she is the person to do it. Okay. And to end this whole thing, I found a quote through, I think it was the Band Director Facebook page, of a Bernstein quote that said, "This will be our reply to violence, to make music more intensely, more beautifully, more devoutly than ever before." Take that as something, as a response to what it is right now. And I'm thinking about the music that will be written out of these past 2 years of Black Lives Matter protests, women's marches, things that just happened, literally the election. I am excited for the music, the beautiful, intense music that we're going to hear, because this is what I've been talking about this whole time. It is related, it's relatable to us, the people right now. And that is what we need in music. I am so glad we're now in 2021. I hope everybody had a healthy and fun and fellowship time with their family, their friends over the break. And we are, as a relative pitch, all three of us, we are here 2021. We're going to make our year even better and even bigger. So please continue to watch us on YouTube, listen to us on Spotify, on Apple, everything. Also, go tell a friend. Go,
yes,
like,
please.
hey, listen to us, you know, and also come and be engaged in our conversations. Let us know what you're feeling, what you want to hear. We'd love to have a conversation, a truly genuine conversation with you as well. So please, 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 the links will be down below for everything. So please just follow us on all those. And I hope you have a great week. Bye, everybody.
See you next time.
See ya.
Thank you for listening and being a part of our conversation. Remember to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We'd love to hear what you thought about today's episode, so leave us a comment or review. See you next time.